You're still on the Afia Business Morning, and you're welcome back to Opening Bell on DSTV channel 254, Go TV 17, and of course, if you're on Free TV 748 or on Afia Business on YouTube. I am Nnamdi Obanya. Now, it's no longer news that former President Muhammadu Buhari has passed away at the age of 82. He served as head of state here in Nigeria twice, once as a military head of state in 1983, and next from 2015 to 2023 as an elected civilian president. He'll be remembered for many different things, but in particular, we want to look at his legacy in the Southeast. Let's get into it. Now, on June the 13th, 2025, it was announced that the country had lost former head of state, President Muhammadu Buhari, after a period of illness. President Buhari enjoyed two sojourns as head of state, firstly in 1983 after a military coup, which saw the removal of President Shehu Shagari, and again in 2015 when he was elected following numerous attempts at the presidency. His periods in office were a mix of good and not so good, depending on what side of the political and sectarian divide you find yourself. His first time as head of state was pretty uneventful, as he had no real impact on the states, as the military administrators and his deputy, Tunde Diagbon, played much more prominent roles. However, things Jim Wobodo, CCO, were removed from office as governors of the old Anambra, while Sam Mbakwe was removed in Imo State, with all the projects they were undertaking abandoned. His second tenure, however, was where there was a bit more drama. The election had been preceded by comments like the blood of the dog and baboon will be soaked in blood, with the animals being any opposition to his electoral victory. And this marked the start of, well, let's say, tribal politics, or as we know it now, which was exaggerated by the overwhelming support the Eastern region gave to the incumbent People's Democratic Party, which had President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, a Southerner from Bayelsa State, as the head of state at that time. Now, there was an evident lack of support from the region. I loosely refer to the Southeast and South-South for the All Progressives Congress, which at the time was a newly established amalgamation of parties, including the Action Congress of Nigeria, the All Nigeria People's Party, the Congress for Progressive Change, which was Buhari's initial party, as well as splinter groups on the People's Democratic Party and the All Progressive Grand Alliance. This lack of support meant that when the time came to pick a government, there was a lack of Eastern representation. To make matters worse, even those from the region who supported him, like Pat Utomi from Delta State, who came from CPC with Buhari, Obanya Monologue, who was the first civilian governor of Abia State, Owele Rocha Sokorocha, the incumbent governor of Imo State at the time, and others saw themselves gradually fade into obscurity. Pat Utomi moved from party to party after a failed bid to pick the party ticket for Delta State governorship elections. Owele Rochas had the moment of infamy when EFCC stormed his residence, destroying property and having him beg for his life on social media while lying on the ground. While Obanya Monologue had a record-setting 7 uneventful years as Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. This was a sharp contrast to the Obasanjo and Jonathan years, which has seen a lot of Easterners in key and influential positions with strong mandates. The likes of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who served as Minister of Finance and the Economy, Obi Ezekwesili, who served as Minister for Solid Minerals, Minister for Education, and before that was the pioneer head of the Budget Monitoring and Price Intelligence Unit, where she earned the nickname Madam Due Process. I'm sure many of us remember that. Or do we talk about Minister of Information, Frank Wike Jr., who seriously opened up the media space for private entrance before becoming Director General, Nigerian Economic Summit Group? Or current Anambra State Governor, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo, who was the central bank governor that consolidated the banking sector and ended the trend of failed banks. And of course, we can't forget the late, great doyen, Professor Dora Akinyuli, the lifesaver, who as the head honcho at NAFDAC then went head-to-head against fake drug manufacturers and sellers. There's still more. Agamention founder of Afia, Chief Emeka Omba, who during his tenure as Director General of Film and Video Censors Board oversaw the professionalization and globalization of Nollywood. There's Ndidi Okereke Onyeke at the Securities Exchange Commission. Look, I can do this all day. So to go from that era to some semi-relevant ministerial appointments was just disheartening and felt like a deliberate act of sidelining, which was fueled by some statements made, including that you cannot give 95% to where you got 5% votes, and calling the region a dot in a circle. We cannot even forget those of us in the fields for 30 months who went through the war will treat them in the language they understand. agreed he was talking about insurgency. But it was said when referring to IPOB and insurgency in this region. And many wondered why Boko Haram and ISWAP did not get the same diatribe and the very thinly veiled civil war reference. When we come to the economy, his utterances are always full of praise for the Igbos, who he said are in charge of the economy. However, a lack of functioning rail with Katsina to Niger, the preferred destination there in Daura, and the total, Katsina, that's Niger actually, and the total abandonment of the East-West Road, South-South ports, and the non-action on the Onitsha River ports sent out a different signal. Granted, he finished the second Niger bridge, but till today, it's still barely in use, and look, it's not 100% good to go. Granted, he appointed Ibe Kachiku as chief executive of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation in August 2015. And on the 11th of November, the same year, Kachiku was named Minister of State for Petroleum Resources and the chairman of the board of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, of course, the NNPC, as provided for under Section 1, Subsection 2 of the National Petroleum Corporation Act of 1997. But by July 2016, Kachiku was removed as GMD of NNPC by the same Buhari and replaced with Dr. Mekanti K. Baru. And 4 years later, the ministerial portfolio was taken over by Timipre Silva. The marginalization was perceived to be so bad that the leader of the Ijaw nation, Chief Edwin Clark, called on President Bola Tinubu not to toe the path of his predecessor, Muhammadu Buhari. And in his own words, Buhari did everything to subjugate the Igbo for reasons best known to him. He accused Buhari of excluding the Southeast from major appointments during his administration, and also said that the Southeast was also unfairly treated in the allocation of funds during Buhari's regime. But for all the good and not so good President Buhari did, the East will most of all remember him for the illegal kidnapping in Kenya and detention of Maazi Nnamdi Kanu. These are the words of the Nigerian judiciary, not even Nnamdi Obanya. Maazi Nnamdi Kanu's continued detention, despite court orders for his release and compensation to be awarded, is the legacy that the East will use to remember the late President Muhammadu Buhari. And I'll leave it at that.